There are a lot of bands out there. Surprising, right? There are so many bands out there that if you tried to listen to even a fraction of them, it would take a lifetime. I like to think that I'm knowledgeable about most bands in most genres. I've made videos about obscure pop-punk bands. I have playlists of 90s Midwest emo that no one but me listens to. I've practically made it a point to explore lesser-known bands on this channel.
You could call it charitable.
But I'm really just an obsessive music nerd with too much time on his hands. Where am I going with this? Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Trevor and I am eternally uncool. I make videos about music, music culture, and anything that interests me. Mostly music right now. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and watching the rest of this video. It's no secret that I am a fan of the obscure. There's just something about finding a band that no one else knows about. It feels more special than discovering a band that's already massive. Most of the bands that I discover and fall in love with are usually broken up, which sucks. And I've always been this way, finding underrated bands. In high school, I was called a hipster because I would listen to bands that no one else in my class knew of. And because I look like this. What I want to do today is look at 3 bands that I think had the potential to be bigger. Most of these bands come from my high school and college years, so expect a lot of emo, pop punk, and indie rock. Some of these bands still hold up, and some of them were never really good in the first place. But either way, I was still a fan. So grab a drink, grab a snack, get comfy, and let's get into the video. The Venetia Fair was a post-hardcore band that incorporated elements of experimental rock, emo, alternative, and circus music. The band was formed in 2008 in Marblehead, Massachusetts by Benny Santoro and Charles King. The two friends had just graduated high school and wanted to start a band. They had been in multiple bands before, including a black metal glam fusion band, which I really want to hear because that sounds fucking fantastic. They named their band after Venetia Catherine Douglas Burney, whose claim to fame is naming the dwarf planet Pluto in 1930, when she was 11 years old. What did you discover when you were 11? Don't answer that. They recorded some demos in 2007 and released them on their Last FM page. These demos are interesting. I never heard them before writing this video. I've only ever heard the studio albums. The first track, Let Me Explain, is kind of disco. Post-disco? I don't know what to call it.
Oh God, what happened to you? I'm barely recognize your face.
The second track, I Know Why They Feel the Way They Do, is your typical post-hardcore song. It's got interesting guitar work and vocals from Santoro. And the final song on this album almost has an ethereal vibe to it. This whole thing definitely has 2007 written all over it. And there was another song listed on the Wikipedia. It was called Who Would Have Thought, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So I'm gonna consider it lost media. They released another demo in 2008. This one definitely shows more of what the band would become, incorporating more circusy vibes. And Santoro's vocals sound more cleaned up and confident. In 2009, they would sign to Red Blue Records. On Red Blue, they released their debut album, The Circus. The album is interesting. It's almost like a concept album split into 2 sides. The first part being called The Overture, and the second side being called The Circus. And the songs on the second half all flow into one another, so it kind of becomes like this one big, long song. They really started perfecting their sound here. The production is cleaner, the band sounds more confident. They really create something unique with this carnival atmosphere mixed with Blood Brothers-esque post-hardcore.
You lose your mind and you freaking them out like you speaking out loud. All apologies, necessities, assertion, expertise is some more than 9% through the what did I know?
In 2012, the band left Red Blue Records, but they would self-release their next album, funding it through a Kickstarter campaign. Remember Kickstarter? Is that still a thing? The Kickstarter for the album ran from October 22nd, 2012 to November 20th, 2012, with an initial goal of $8,000. This goal was reached in 4 days and eventually raised $15,000 for an accompanying brass section and music videos. They included some pretty cool gifts to fans who donated, like personalized music lessons, parts in music videos. Spit on my laptop. The album, Every Sick, Disgusting Thought We've Got in Our Brain, was released in March of 2013. They really upped the ante on this one, adding outside musicians to play trumpets and xylophones and sousaphones, probably. And they also brought in a backing vocalist named Ass Poop. I have nothing to add on that, I just wanted to say the name Ass Poop.
Ass Poop.
This is a concept album like the last one, but it's kind of weird. The TLDR is basically about a scientist who believes that God is a ubiquitous being and must exist in the only infinite thing we know of, the human mind. Then it goes into like a love story about memory and the truth of God. It's a lot. It's weird.
It's in his brain. I got that travel through his veins and settled in.
One of the things the band included on their Kickstarter was cover songs. Whoever donated was allowed to request the band to do a cover of whatever song they wanted. Benny Santoro said, "We said we'd cover anything they wanted, and we got 6 very different songs from different genres and different eras in music, each with their own challenges. We had no intention of simply playing these songs as they were originally played, especially Bohemian Rhapsody. We didn't want to go anywhere near that song. So we took our time and completely rebuilt them from the ground up to make sure we made them our own. Some of these songs we loved and had to figure out how to tweak them without totally ruining them, and some songs we hated and had to figure out how to make them good. But I believe we rose up to the challenge and, with the help of our Kickstarter backers, put together a very strange and very cool little cover EP. We definitely trashed some classic tunes, but it's very tongue-in-cheek since we would never take a cover song seriously because it's basically just us doing karaoke." This EP was actually how I discovered the band. I found their cover of Come On Eileen because I was a huge fan of The Perks of Being a Wallflower when I was in high school. And I was just blown away by their cover. They definitely did make it their own.
Come on, Eileen, oh, I swear, in this moment, you mean everything. You in that dress, so my thoughts I confess, virgin on dirty. Oh, come on, Eileen.
The Venetia Fair was set to go on tour with A Lot Like Birds and Cyanvar in 2014, but they had to drop out due to Benny Santoro getting a throat infection, which would cause long-term damage if he continued to perform. Eventually, the band called it quits in 2015. After the breakup, the members moved on to their own things. Benny Santoro is now part of a composing duo called the Young Ebenezers. They've scored advertising campaigns for companies like Apple and Google. The only other member I could find anything for in terms of after band life is Joe Occhietti, who has been a member of the gigantic metalcore band Ice Nine Kills since 2019.
Do you like like Ice Nine Kills? Not really.
Why wasn't the Venetia Fair bigger?
Why?
I think maybe they were just too weird and too artsy for that era of post-hardcore. This was around the time when metalcore was getting real big, with bands like Architects becoming huge names. I don't think anyone was looking for a post-hardcore band that was making theatrical circus music. I also think they needed a label. There's only so much you can do with crowdfunding, unfortunately. And of course, Benny Santoro's throat infection could have played a part in the band's demise. Not 100% sure on that one. I think the Venetia Fair is a really interesting band that makes really unique music. If you like theatrical bands like Panic at the Disco and My Chemical Romance, and bands with the energy of Foxy Shazam, then the Venetia Fair is definitely for you. Check them out.
Hello haters and hello friends, it's me, Jeremy, I'm back again.
Finland is somewhat known for its great heavy music. Him, The Razmyth, 69 Eyes, Hanoi Rocks. The country is like a breeding ground for hard rock. But did you know that Finland also has an emo side? No? Well, aren't you lucky that you have me? I'm gonna read off of this for a good portion of this entry because all of these names are Finnish, and I am dumb. Snow White's Poison Bite was formed in Joensuu, Finland in 2006 by Alan Kotoril, Juuso Puhakka, Tuomo Korindor, and Timu Laikis. I told you I'm not going to be able to say these names. Puhakka would lead the band pretty early though, making the band a quartet, with Kotorel, who originally did clean vocals, becoming the main vocalist. They released a demo not long after formation. It's what you would expect from any young screamo band in the mid-2000s. It's a bit rough around the edges and the recording quality isn't really good, but I actually kind of like the clean vocals and the melodies on some of these songs. In 2009, they released the EP Drama Through Your Stereo. It's a little more cleaned up and polished than the demo. It's not the worst thing I've heard. It's definitely something that high school Trev would have been into a lot more though.
Drama fills your life again, a broken ribcage, it's the end. Hard to mend, it's never meant to be this hard.
In 2010, the band signed to Sound of Finland Records and released their debut album, The Story of Christie Killings. This album had more of a horror punk vibe than their demo and EP. There's a lot more production and theatricality. It really reminds me of what Ice Nine Kills was doing around this time, and I know that's the second time I mentioned Ice Nine Kills in this video, shut up. But there's also hints of Escape the Fate and My Chemical Romance thrown in there. This album also includes probably their best and worst song, The End of Prom Night.
It's the end of prom night. It's the end, it's the end, it's the end. You're not gonna be the homecoming queen tonight. Let's go!
It's so goofy and dramatic. And let me be clear, I loved this song when I was in college. I loved it. But I was also young and drunk. But Prom Night has become a kind of guilty pleasure for me. In 2011, every member except Alan left the band, forcing them to cancel tour dates for the rest of the year. I couldn't find any reason for this mass exodus. In 2013, the band, or I guess just Alan at this point, signed to Victory Records, one of the most famous and infamous record labels for pop punk, emo, hardcore, screamo of the 2000s and 2010s. They released their second album featuring Dr. Gruesome and the Gruesome Gory Horror Show. I actually owned this album on CD for a couple years because I think I saw a video on Brian Starr's channel, of all fucking places, and I just thought they were the coolest thing. And I won't lie, I was disappointed. I don't know if I was just growing out of this style of music or if it just wasn't good, but I did not like this album. There was like 1 or 2 good songs. Count Dracula Kid is probably the best song on the entire album. The album got good reviews.
Somehow.
Metal Hammer gave it 3.5 stars, calling it a new take on horror punk. Front Row Report called it fresh, rating it 9 out of 10. I don't think Alan and the band read these review those because after this, they'll go radio silent. Snow White's Poison Bite hasn't released anything since 2013, and the last post on their Instagram is from 2015. Linking to the band's Facebook page, which hasn't posted anything since 2019. And what it did post, or at least the posts you can still see, all link to this thing called 13. I don't know if it's a band or a company. There's a lot of merch. Why wasn't Snow White's Poison Bite bigger? They had great reviews on their second album, setting them up to be the next big thing in horror punk. What happened? Personally, I think Snow White's Poison Bite wasn't bigger because, well, they weren't that original. There were bands doing horror punk better before them. They didn't really put a new spin on it or, add anything special. But don't think that I'm just shitting on a band that doesn't exist anymore. I do legitimately come back to this band every once in a while. Like I said, guilty pleasure.
You know what time it is? 3, 2.
It's no secret on this channel that I love all flavors of pop punk. From the more serious and respectable acts like The Wonder Years, old guards like Green Day and Blink-182, or newer bands like Magnolia Park and Meet Me at the Altar. I love all of it, but I specifically love lesser known pop punk bands, as you could probably see. I don't remember how I discovered The Hire, but I know it was from one of 2 places, YouTube or Pandora. Those were my only 2 sources of music about 6 or 7 years ago. I didn't have Spotify. I was also drinking a lot back then, so that's probably one of the reasons why I can't remember how I discovered this band. It doesn't matter. What does matter is I found them. The band was formed in 2002 in Las Vegas, Nevada. They're one of the bands from the 2000s that mixed pop punk with R&B, taking just as much influence from Michael Jackson as they did from Jimmy Eat World. They got a lot of attention and eventually signed to an indie label in 2003. They released an EP called Dead Star the same year. The music is pretty good, but it's a lot more post-hardcore than R&B. We'd get that in later releases. But right now, this band was more akin to something like Matchbook Romance. After this, the band gained a lot of momentum, going on tour opening for Alexis on Fire, Silverstein, and Emery. In 2004, they would enter the studio again to record their debut album. This album sounds a lot better than the EP did, and it's got a real, Fall Out Boy vibe to it, and they really let their pop punk and R&B influences show.
One check, one love. How many times can we watch him crumble? Histrionics repeats itself all over again. I'm down on thought, you say. You're becoming so the same.
But I think the band really started coming into their own when they released their sophomore album, On Fire. Now this album is where they just let everything go. They go all out on the R&B influences. The opening track, Insurance, is just such a danceable number.
Let's burn this filthy town straight into the ground with our dirty looks and glances. Come on, can you hear us now? As we rock you, shock you, drop you, and make you want it more.
But they still have those pop-punk emo bangers with songs like Movement, my personal favorite of the band.
Dearly departed, certain tragedy. When we started off, we were such an indestructible team. When you had your plans, I had my dream.
The Higher would start touring with bands like Panic at the Disco, Escape the Fate, and Motion City Soundtrack. The music video for Insurance would even hit the #1 spot on MTV.
In Japan.
The band went through multiple lineup changes throughout their career, as well as various label switches. After a tour in 2010, the band just kind of went quiet. We didn't hear much from the band until 2022, when they released their latest EP, Elvis in Wonderland. This EP isn't bad. It's actually really good. They sound just as good as they did on their last album.
If you're in it for a free ride, hate to let you down. This love is like a war cry, and I'm breaking down.
Why wasn't The Higher bigger? The Higher came out around a time when pop punk and emo was just exploding. Fall Out Boy were killing the game. My Chemical Romance was changing the game. And there were so many other bands just playing the game. The Higher fell into that category. They weren't one of the bigger bands of the genre, so it was easier for them to get kind of overlooked. Their sound was unique, but not unique enough. You had a lot of other bands mixing R&B and pop punk with a lot more power behind them. The Higher just kind of faded away. But now they're back. If you like bands that are a mix between Fall Out Boy and The Cab, The Higher is definitely for you. Check them out. Have you heard of any of these bands? Do you like them? Do you not like them?
Why?
Let me know in the comments. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then I highly recommend smashing the like button and sharing this video with everyone you know. We just reached 500 subscribers, and I am so thankful to all of my subscribers, especially the new ones who got me here. This is just amazing. I started making videos in January with about 40 subscribers. And now, not even a year later, I'm at 500. And it's just so great. It's so just amazing. But I still want to say, share this video as much as possible. Every like, every comment, every share, all the interaction with this video helps me in the algorithm to get it pushed out and reach more people who might be interested in what I'm doing. My next goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers. And when I reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do something special. I am going to get a tattoo of my catchphrase, "Stay uncool," somewhere. Maybe on my forehead.
Not on my forehead.
But I will get a tattoo once I reach 1,000 subscribers. And I'm not gonna put like a time limit on this, just whenever I reach it is when I get the tattoo. So, 1,000 subscribers, stay uncool tattoo. If you got this far, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Trevor, stay uncool. And that's the end of the video, goodbye.